My name is Michelle. Last year, in 2023, in August, I was diagnosed with breast cancer and I had 2 tumours in my right breast. I'm not through the woods yet, but I'm getting there. I have only my mum in my life. My dad passed away. We live separately. I have my own house that I built that I love. I love my home. I love furnishing it, having friends over, entertaining. I love travelling. I have a huge love for travel. I also sing in a vocal group with 4 beautiful girls, and I'm the 5th one. I worked in the wine industry for 15 years. It was a wonderful experience. I worked for a beautiful family company. I was in administration, so I had a plethora of different chores that I needed to do and duties that were my responsibilities throughout the day. It was a very versatile role, very varied, and it afforded me a wonderful lifestyle. It enabled me to buy my first home. It enabled me to travel the world. I've travelled quite extensively, and I was exposed to beautiful people, farmers who were just men of the land, very down-to-earth people. Along the way, I heard so many wonderful stories about them, and also some very sad stories with bushfires and so forth that we experience here in Australia. I'm not there any longer, but I am still in touch with them. The cream on top is that I got to experience so many beautiful wines from France, Italy, Portugal, even Australia, and it was a real struggle for me as to whether I would leave there to pursue other avenues. And one was, what if something happens to me or happens to my mum? What will I do? Because I've got the stability of this job. If I was to leave it, I feel like I'm sort of open and exposed, and I haven't got the stability where I knew with this family business that I was fortunate enough to be involved in, that they would have my back if I got gravely ill or my mum got gravely ill. Who knew what was to come? My new job is with one of Australia's leading airlines. It's an international carrier. It's something that I've always wanted to do as a little girl growing up. A friend of mine was lucky enough to be employed by this company. He said to me, you should apply because we're looking for people. Who knew? I got through. It was a number of different interviews, quite a process to be honest. I went and did training for 2 months, very intense and very challenging, a whole new language with things that you need to learn about working on a plane and all the safety measures that are involved. I loved life. I was living my best life. I was traveling to LA, I was traveling to Singapore, Japan, I went to Tokyo. I really was living my best life and I was loving it. The people on board, I loved the customers, I loved the people that I work with. The crew are just wonderful people. And in August, it all come to a big halt, or just prior to August, because my life had been so busy with leaving my previous job in the wine industry, and then it was very quick. I didn't have much time in between leaving there and going to do my training school. Life had been a bit of a steamroller, like things just kept going and you didn't have time to stop. I was starting to think I really need to go and get a mammogram, because prior to that, of course, we had COVID here, and in Australia we were in lockdown for quite some time and everything shut down. Then with my life just took over and one thing led to another, and time was really of the essence, and I just didn't have the time to go and get a mammogram. And when I came back to Melbourne and started flying, in between I felt that, well, I've got these days off, I really need to knuckle down and start looking after my body. I decided that I was overdue for a mammogram, and I went and I got a mammogram, not thinking that there was anything wrong because I had no symptoms, nothing. It was just purely a routine checkup that I went to go and have a look at. This particular day I was in my hotel room lying in bed, and I got a message on my phone to say that I had been recalled, that they'd found something in my breast that they wanted to investigate further because they could only see it from one angle. So I had to ring them, make my appointment, which was for that next week after I come back, and I went down there. Then and there they did an ultrasound and a second mammogram. The words they used were, we're not going to sugarcoat this, you have 2 tumours in your right breast and it's my belief that they're 99% cancerous. And that was that. And that's where my world just spun around, and I just held my head in my hands, because in that moment it's surreal and you can't believe what you're hearing, and it's like, this is not me, this is not my life. The worst thing about that moment is all you hear is those words, that you have cancer, and not one but two. You don't know anything about the cancer at that point. All you know is that you have it. They don't tell you in that moment how aggressive it is, if it's slow growing, what type of cancer it is, whether it's survivable. All you know in that moment is that you've got cancer, and that is it's a very surreal feeling and very confronting, not only for my own mortality, thinking, you know, what does this mean for me? What does this mean for my life? I have my dear mum who came to support me at the appointment, waiting outside in the waiting room, anxious as well. And then I have to go and deliver the news to her without any further knowledge of what this means for me and my life. All I can tell her, which she knew on the look on my face, is that I have got cancer. And that's all I can tell you, Mum. It was very hard. I suppose everyone reacts differently. What went through my mind, what can they do to fix it? What can they do? How can they treat me? How can I get past this? At the time, it was more about survival. I went into survival mode, like, okay, I have it. What are we going to do? What do you do to fix this? How bad is it? They're all the questions I wanted to know. Can they be dissolved? Do they need to be cut out? Will I lose my hair? All these sorts of things. How long, how aggressive is this cancer? There was more questions I had about the cancer and what they were going to do to remedy that, more so than my life. And then once I had those answers, for me, I was very fortunate that it was a slow growing cancer. They'd caught it early. I knew my life was going to stop. Money is an issue. How am I going to live? I can't afford to live here and pay the mortgage. So, of course, I moved in with my mum. Wasn't in the headspace to pack up my house. I was fortunate that I'd just left my job in administration that I'd been paid out for. I had money in the bank, a lump sum of money. I moved in with my mum to save on utilities. She paid all my food. There was a lot of support that I needed financially as well and I just wanted to be with her and she wanted to be with me. Any questions that I had, the breast care team at the hospital that I'm under, and they guided me to put me in touch with my superannuation company. Cancer Council and the social workers told me to investigate that, and I did, and they were able to navigate me so that I could claim like an income protection, which would give me a portion of my current salary, which has been invaluable to me. So while I'm not able to work and recovering, because as well as you're thinking about yourself and your mortality and your health, unfortunately in those times of those kinds of stresses, the finances do come into it, because everything outside of that just doesn't stop. And I mean, you can apply for hardship. You don't know how long this is going to go on for. So you need some kind of support in that regard as well. I felt numb when I was told. I was like, of course you're going to fight. But it was just so surreal that you don't, even though I'm 54, you just don't think it's going to happen to you. And I had no signs, no symptoms. So I just changed my life. I got this great new job and life was tickety-boo. It floored me, but I was numb as well. I said to my surgeon, am I going to see 70? And she said, yes, you are. Now, whether she's just said that just because I don't know, because she can't predict the future and what's going to happen down the track from now. But she took care of that problem and that gave me strength that I was going to be okay. Thankfully, I haven't had to deal with a worse diagnosis than that. I haven't had to deal with being told, you definitely are going to have a mastectomy. This has spread and all this nasty kind of things that can go along with this kind of illness. I did have a scare where I was like, they wanted to do further testing and they did find other shadows around the breast, on the other side of the breast. And I knew that if it came back that those tested positive as tumours, I knew that I would be looking at a double mastectomy, and that was very overwhelming for me. You just go into a form of, right, survival is paramount. This is what I've got to do, and if it means losing my bust, well, this is just what has to happen because it's just aesthetics, really. You know, even though it's part of you and it's so important to us as females, survival is paramount. If I've got to do it, I've got to do it. And it wasn't as simple as that. It did take me a little while to wrap my head around. I shed a lot of tears, worrying, stressing. You've just got to do it. And I don't know where the strength comes from. You're thrown into that hole at the moment. Our coping mechanisms are quite unbelievable. I still have bad days. I still stress and worry about, you know, what if it comes back? What if they find something? But, you know, then you have a good day as well, and you just get up and on, and everyone's so different with how they react and how they cope. But that was what it was for me. It was survival's paramount. I've got to do this. You've got to fight. You've got to believe. A big thing for me was you've got to believe in the science. You've got to believe in what the doctors tell you, and you are putting your faith in their hands, but you believe in the science, you believe you've got a good team of medical staff behind you that are going to look after you, and it's in their interest to look after you, and they don't want to see anybody go. They're going to do everything that they can. For my treatment plan, it started with a bunch of testing to see if there was anything else going on, like mammograms, ultrasounds, biopsies. They tested the kind of cancer, so they knew exactly what they were dealing with. As I said, I was diagnosed in the August, and then it was about a month later, about 4 weeks later. They don't let you go any longer than a month here in Australia once you've been diagnosed from surgery. I had to have surgery and have a lumpectomy, have both the tumours cut out. That was done in the September. There's a bit of healing to be done after that, obviously. And then the first week of November, I started my chemo, and I had 4 rounds of chemo. I lost all my hair after about 3 weeks of the first treatment, of the first session. Then I finished my chemo. I had my last treatment the 2nd of January 2024. In the start of February, I started my radiation, which I had 15 sessions of radiation, which I got a lot of skin burn and quite uncomfortable. And then once I finished that, I had about a week's break. And then I go on, because my cancer is what they call a hormonal cancer. So it's driven largely by the hormone imbalance in my body. So if they can balance the hormones, that will hopefully eradicate another tumour growing. So they've put me on what they call an endocrine therapy, which is like a hormonal tablet that I will take every day for the next 5 to 10 years, depending. So if it doesn't come back within the 5 years, there's a good chance that I'll never see it again. So every day, every little twinge, something that's different, you think, oh, what's that? Is that something? I've got no reason to think it's not going to be, because they've hit me with surgery, they've hit me with chemo, they've hit me with radiation. I've had all this treatment thrown at me, everything that they can do. So I'm positive that I'm going to be okay. But of course, in the back of your mind, it's only human that there's an element of anxiety there as well. But it's just fingers crossed. I have been told by the doctors, because I've had this conversation with them about how I'm feeling and, what's the possibility of something being shown. And they said I would have to be extremely unlucky. But then your mind wanders, and it's like, well, okay, maybe it won't be in the right breast. What if something's in the left breast? Your mind just wanders. You've really got to try and keep yourself mentally focused in a good place and keep positive. And as they say, I've heard it many times, you live with cancer. Even though you may not have cancer, you live with cancer once you've had it. And you just try and push it to the back, not live in denial, but put it at the back of your mind and just go live your life and live every day for today, because tomorrow's not promised. The chemo, it was hard. The loss of hair. I mean, I've always had my crowning glory. I've had long blonde hair. It was the day about 3 weeks into my chemo that it started to fall out. Oh, I was devastated. It just came out like chewing gum. I started crying hysterically. Although you knew that kind of to expect that, in that moment when it becomes your reality, it was very, very confronting. But again, our coping mechanisms and how we adjust as humans, and a form of acceptance. How do you wrap your head around something like that? I don't know. Unless you go through it, it's just a form of acceptance, and you can't do anything about it. It's going to happen. So what am I going to do? Sit here and cry for the next 6 months, 12 months? I can't do that. So you've just got to, accept it, and you get beautiful wigs like this one. But, you lose your eyebrows, you lose your eyelashes. You can also lose your fingernails. The chemotherapy can attack your fingernails, so I had to wear a black nail polish. The body aches, constipation was horrific that you get with the chemotherapy. That was really tough. They do give you tablets for nausea, so my nausea wasn't as bad as what it could have been. And then, of course, with the radiation, the burning of the skin, which comes out pretty much more towards the end of the radiation, and you have to rub creams, put dressings on, because the skin's just burnt, basically. I've always felt that I'm a strong personality and that I can cope with a lot because of different things that have happened in my life leading up to this. But this is by far the worst of it all. You're out on a limb wondering, am I going to see tomorrow? That's a very different kind of strength, a very different kind of perspective on life. I wouldn't wish this upon anybody, and I certainly hope I never have to go through it again. Hopefully I'm coming through it at the other end. For me, I wish I never had to go through it. I am currently cancer-free to my knowledge. I've been told that medically by the doctors. Go and get it checked. Early detection is paramount. Please just go get checked and don't wait, especially if you feel there's something not right. That's the best advice I can offer.